And let's start by global auto news. For all those who predict doomsday for conventional cars because of Uber Ola, Carlos Ghosn, one of the world's top auto CEOs and head of Renault Nissan, believes personal car ownership isn't going anywhere. He says this regardless of rise of Uber technologies and other car-hailing apps like Ola in India. Global vehicle sales will continue to expand with alternative forms of mobility making only a marginal impact or actually boosting demand, said Carlos Ghosn, the chairman of alliance between Renault, Nissan Motor and Mitsubishi Motors Corp. Ghosn's prediction flies in the face of forecasts that emergence of ride-hailing and car-sharing will, coupled with vehicles capable of driving themselves, will upend more than $2 trillion annual business of selling new vehicles. Demand in developed markets like US, Europe and Japan are stabilizing, but rates of ownership still have room to rise in markets including India and China, Ghosn said. Group of companies Ghosn overseas is poised to sell about 10 million cars and trucks globally this year, enough to contend with Volkswagen and Toyota. And with a view to address competition concerns, EU antitrust regulators will investigate whether ArcelorMittal's proposed purchase of Italian steel plant Ilva will lead to price hikes. ArcelorMittal, world's largest steel maker, reached a $2 billion deal to acquire Europe's biggest capacity steel plant in June. The loss-making plant in Taranto in Italy's south is grappling with a serious pollution issue. European Commission opened a full-scale investigation yesterday, voicing worries that merger might reduce competition in some flat carbon steel products and result in higher prices, especially for customers in southern Europe. Italian government said there was a lot of material for Commission to deal with. ArcelorMittal, based in Luxembourg, would work constructively with the EU and force us to gain approval for the deal in a timely manner. Commission said concessions offered by ArcelorMittal last month failed to address its concerns. And moving to Brexit, where the talks resumed yesterday with no indication that a breakthrough is in reach. So while both sides are hoping for an agreement by the end of the year, Europeans are striking a cautious note. There are three main divorce issues on the table: the rights of EU citizens in the UK and vice versa, Irish borders, and the money EU says UK owes because of long and short-term financial commitments made while an EU member. PM Brexit's advisor Oliver Robbins has been in Brussels this week and speaking to EU team in private before the official start of talks. Also, Irish Prime Minister told lawmakers in Dublin that he expects a breakthrough in December, which would allow negotiations at last to move on to trade. We're joined by in-house expert and our correspondent Jessica Taneja for more on this. Jessica, good morning to you. I would like to ask you first of all why they are saying that the Brexit is going to be dramatic.
Well, Sumit, hasn't it always been dramatic? Try and understand that the Lisbon Treaty that Britain had signed, it's moving out of it. It's a historic move that they made back in the year. So looking at how they're going with stalling the talks, with frequent, in fact, invitations to the European Union and a stern message coming out from the European Union members. Now, the important point to note here is, Sumit, there are reports, according to the Politico, which say that France and Germany, one of the two major allies in the European Union, in fact, have been preparing a draft conclusion which are meant to prevent continuation or automatic continuation of Brexit talks. Now, this is an important development, so to say, because if France and Germany are preparing to halt Brexit negotiations, where Theresa May, remember, is due to talk and address the European Union in December, this will be a big setback because according to the European Union, Britain owes a divorce bill of around £53 million to the European Union. Until unless that is made clear, only then negotiations will move forward.
Jessica, also one more thing, that there are 3 points to be discussed. The first point obviously is what will happen to UK workers' rights after Brexit and vice versa. Also money to be exchanged. So how do you see the overall issues impacting the economy in UK and EU both?
Well, of course, the economy is going to tumble. Just a few, in fact, days ago, there was a report from the Bank of England which said that, set your priorities straight. We need to know what's happening with Brexit. They had asked the government to give them details or a report of sorts on how they're going to go ahead with Brexit negotiations, because remember, Britain is the financial capital. It's a financial hub. So many agencies, financial agencies, banking sectors are settled in UK, and they're slowly trying to move away from, London now, which is going to be difficult. And it's worried the Bank of England a lot, saying that our, economy is really going to go down unless we plan something. Also try and understand, Sumit, on how difficult it's going to be for Britain to be able to negotiate Brexit, as it has always been. When you talk about, the people's rights, and especially the EU passport and the negotiations of free movement, trade, and the deals, is going to be very, very difficult unless Britain wakes up and smells the coffee and Theresa May actually takes charge of what she really wants to do. Does she want a hard Brexit? Does she want to initiate a soft Brexit, which is really not her choice at the moment? And remember, she said that in an election campaign as well. So it's going to be really difficult to see what she's up to unless in December, if her talks are halted. This is going to be a really big setback.
All right, thank you, Jessica, for getting us all these details on this important developing story. You are at the top of this story every day. And moving to gaming world, where there is a war brewing over war games. The maker of Humvee military vehicles in US has filed a lawsuit accusing Activision of reaping billions of dollars by revenue by incorporating its trademarks without permission in its flagship Call of Duty game. So overall, there's a war over video war games. Humvee maker has sued Activision. Activision is the maker of Call of Duty games. They are quite popular, and Humvee, but on the other hand, is a high mobility multi-purpose wheeled vehicles used on a large scale by US Army. Call of Duty franchise was launched in 2003, and since then it has been quite successful. The games have so far toppled 250 million units of sales. And looking at that, Humvee has now sued Call of Duty games, where a complaint filed on Tuesday night in US District Court in Manhattan. AM General accused Activision of taking advantage of its goodwill and reputation in the Humvee and HMMWV marks by featuring them prominently in Call of Duty and licensing related content for use in toys and books. Humvee and HMMWV are short for High Mobility Multi-Purpose Vehicles. That is one fight that is brewing over, again, a fight game. And as we told you, Call of Duty is a very successful game. On the other hand, Humvee are the vehicles used by US Army majorly in many parts of the world. So both US companies are against each other on this successful game. Moving back to global auto world, where even 2 years after infamous Volkswagen scandal, German car maker Volkswagen has yet to fix around 400,000 of the 1.2 million cars affected by diesel emission scandal in Britain. The German carmaker admitted in September 2015 to using software to cheat diesel emission tests in the US and has since paid out compensation to US motorists, but has refused to do so in Europe. British Parliament's Environmental Audit Committee said Volkswagen had showed the pace of its work in recent months and called on the Transport Ministry to take action. Volkswagen said it had made technical changes to around 800,000 cars out of just under 1.2 million cars in Britain, but that as the process was voluntary rather than safety recall. It may never fix every single one of 6 million of roughly 10 million cars that are affected by the diesel scandal worldwide. They have been refitted with the lion's share in Europe. About 90% of 2.5 million affected cars in Volkswagen's German home market have been fixed so far. The whole world might be divided over Bitcoin use, but it is still touching new heights. Bitcoin hit a record high just shy of $8,000 yesterday after a coalition of developers and investors suspended a software upgrade planned for next Thursday. Software could have split digital currency in two. In an email yesterday, the lead developer of the team planning to carry out upgrades said Sedgwick 2X would be scrapped for now as it could divide the community. Now, SegBit2X is an agreement among high-profile figures in the Bitcoin world aimed at upgrading Bitcoin network's capacity. It received significant support when it was announced in May, but many Bitcoin developers had withdrawn support for the upgrade over the last few months. Analysts said the software upgrade would have attempted to address Bitcoin network's limitations in processing millions of daily transactions. Network has not kept pace with growth and is unable to process transactions fast enough. The upgrade would have changed Bitcoin's rules, leading to a so-called fork, effectively cloning the existing Bitcoin to create another cryptocurrency. And there's some topic that is close to all of us, that is e-waste. India has emerged as 5th largest electronic waste producer in world.com Pewter Devices account, and it accounts for nearly 70% of e-waste, with the contribution of telecom sector being 12%, medical equipment being 8%, and electric equipment being 7% of annual e-waste production. The government, public sector companies and private sector companies generate nearly 75% of electronic waste, while the contributor of household sectors are only 16%. Mumbai tops the list in producing electronic waste, followed by New Delhi, Bangalore and Chennai. Electronic waste account for over 40% of lead and 70% of heavy metals found in landfills. These pollutants are responsible for groundwater contamination, air pollution and soil acidification. And when it comes to e-waste, very little is being recycled, and Britain is one of the worst offenders according to a UN report. It claims the electronic waste worth $44 billion is building up in a toxic mine. Beyonce Mandy Clark has the story.
Britain is among the world's biggest producer of e-waste, ranking 6th for total amount produced, and it's 5th in the world in terms of weight of material thrown out per household, with each Briton creating 23.5 kg of e-waste per year. That means Britain generates 1.5 megatons of e-waste. That's just 100,000 tons less than India, which has 20 times the population. Experts say Britain is missing out on the opportunity to recycle their e-waste, with just a third of it in the UK recycled, and the buildup of e-waste is only expected to get